Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Another Wednesday, another soft spoken video. Today, we are going to cover a case with a little bit of nostalgia if you are one of those that remembers this guy we're going to talk about today. Now, if you are new to the channel, welcome. Every Wednesday, I do a soft spoken Wednesday, and then Mondays and Fridays, I do the typical whispered videos. As always, you might hear a little bit of snoring, and puppy may be having a few nightmares, but I hope that this case is somewhat interesting to you and at the same time delivered in a relaxing way. Now, for those of you who are not aware, there's a new video over on Patreon, and there's a couple of updated videos for my members. Members get videos ad-free, but for the last 2 weeks, maybe even 3, I've been having problems downloading the same video twice, and that's what I have to do in order to share one with ads and the other one with no ads. If you're a genius, or if you're smarter than me and can think of a better way of doing it, please let me know. However, I updated the last 2 videos that were giving me a hard time, and hopefully, if you remember, you're listening to this on your member site. So thank you for the support on Patreon. For $5 a month, you get 4 videos a month, and as a member, just the YouTube videos ad-free. For now, that's all I can take. I've been listening to your suggestions as far as adding extra content to the member sites, but I am not quite there yet, so I will let you know if there are any changes. Now, if you don't mind and you enjoy my content, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up or leave a comment. That really helps to spread the video to even more people that are looking for this kind of content. Now, let me get started with today's case. This will take us back to the 80s or early 90s. So, for those of you that are around my age, maybe you were too young to remember, but maybe not. Rick Chance was a very smart guy at the time. He was living in the Phoenix area, and he had a business. His business name, Empire Glass. He would replace car windshields, but he had a way of doing business that worked really well for him. The desert in Arizona means, and a lot of other places, mean, a lot of small rocks. And they get to the freeway. And of course, people would get chips. And so, since that was a very profitable market, he saw that opportunity. In the year 1982, he made deals with insurance companies and local restaurants to create Empire Glass. Now, he was the guy that did the very well-known commercial. He was always kind of very dressed up with his suit and showing the process, or was always somebody replacing a windshield in the back. He advertised that he would replace your windshield when it cracked at little to no cost, and also give you 12 free dinners at a nice restaurant for the trouble. I mean, it was a massive success, and after 2 decades, after being a one-man business, he actually expanded into 6. But let's talk about Rick. Now that some of you may remember him, or I'll try to put a picture so you can see him in his element. I think it's important to look behind, to look back, where he grew up, the kind of kid he was, and the challenges he encountered, and how everything ties down in today's case. Now, Rick grew in Maricopa, Arizona, which is, I'm assuming at the time, don't know if it still is, but it was a tiny farming town just south of Phoenix. And according to his family, he always had an entrepreneurial spirit. His dad wanted him to follow his footsteps, so he encouraged Rick to work at the farm with a tractor. But often he'd just say, "Dad, I don't need to do this. I'm going to be a millionaire." At a very early age, he lost an eye to childhood glaucoma. And since then, he had to wear glasses. He didn't mind. This thing really seemed to empower him. Rick knew about basketball, football, and track at Maricopa High School, and he also edited the school newspaper. Rick was very successful in the business side of his life, but sadly his love life was not the same. In the year 1979, Rick married Nori Ann Rose. 3 months later, she filed divorce. He tried to save it, I should say, the marriage. And they tried, but in the end, they got divorced in the year 1981, just before he started Empire class. He wanted to have a family, and a year later he married Christine. It lasted longer, and they had 2 kids. He was in kind of in a predicament, really. He loved his business and his money. That gave him the ability to own a multi-million-dollar home in Paradise Valley. He drove the newest Mercedes and wore expensive jewelry. He'd go to strip clubs. But then there was this other side of Rick, where he was deeply religious, and he was known for quoting long Bible verses verbatim. He loved to donate money to charities and evangelical churches. He was also funding international ministries. And he believed that his success was because of his relationship with the Lord. After 10 years of marriage, everything seemed to be picture perfect. But his marriage was in trouble. Rick, having everything, was looking for something else, I'd say. And that is when he met a 19-year-old prostitute at a resort. This girl drugged him and stole $71,000. This was in jewelry and his car. When Christine found out, she filed for divorce and shared custody of the children. But soon after, they moved to Denver. In some court documents, she accused him of, quote, wasteful and frivolous spending that led him to ignore his family. And I'm gonna read you just a little part of that statement. Quote, he is frequently out of town and spends 60 hours per week in work and work-related activities. Rick was in an extremely embarrassing legal situation involving a prostitute, which unfortunately became front page news. End quote. The interesting part is that Christine was awarded control over of the Denver operation of Empire Glass. She was also awarded half of their Paradise Valley home, a $20,000 fur coat, her 1991 Infinity convertible, and on top of that, Rick had to pay for their children's private religious school tuition. As you can probably imagine, he was feeling very down on himself. And after feeling like he was a very spiritual guy and, or thinking that about himself, and then being on the first page of the newspapers with a prostitute that drugged and robbed him. Now this, the divorce. But he decided to keep himself together, and he continued to flash his wealth and showed off, I guess. In 1995, Rick met Jill Scott, who was stunning. Yeah, it was described as blonde with green eyes, and she was so beautiful that she had won the title of Mrs. America in the year 1990. So Rick, of course, married her. They got married on Valentine's Day. They had a fairy tale wedding, and it was broadcast live from Las Vegas on Good Morning America. Jill, however, had some secrets, because shortly after she won the Mrs. America title, she was sued by the pageant. Apparently, she was actually separated from her first husband at the time, so that made her, I guess, ineligible for the title of Mrs. America. She was also hiding the fact that she had several plastic surgeries. You puppy, stay. And that she signed a contract to star in a porn movie called Mrs. XXX America. Now, as you can probably imagine, Rick, feeling so spiritual and self-righteous, filed for an annulment after only 4 months of marriage. The judge didn't approve that annulment, so he filed another one in the year 1998. There, he described Jill as a quote gold digger whose goal was to basically take his money. Jill claimed that she thought she was marrying a good Christian man, but she found herself with a quote-unquote religious kook. She said that he would chant incantations and order her to read the scripture for hours while bent over, face down, holding her ankles in adoration of God. She claimed that Rick once received a complaint letter from a customer and screamed, quote, "This is from Satan." He then ripped it up and threw it on the fire and started one of his chanting things. She also spoke of unusual sexual ideas he had and demanded from her. Apparently, he invited another man to their bedroom, and that led her to believe that maybe, being so religious, he was kind of hiding the fact that he liked men too. The divorce, it ended up being a divorce, of course, and it was over in 1998. She was awarded $250,000, jewelry, and $8,333 per month for 4 years. Throughout all this craziness, the business was doing great, but he was getting bored of it. His real passion now was jewelry, and he wanted to become a jewelry dealer. It was a tight group of dealers in the Phoenix area, and he had trouble kind of getting into this already established industry. He sold his expensive jewelry to local dealers, and low-end jewelry he would sell through newspaper ads. He would buy from wholesale from dealers and middlemen, and then turn them around, selling them as his own designs. His favorite jewelry were Rolex watches and raw diamonds. He was still very trusting of people, especially ladies, even after 3 failed marriages. So he would often carry a briefcase full of jewelry with him to show to his clients in public places. Even some of his friends found very odd that he'd be drinking in bars and carrying this full of jewelry. This briefcase full of jewelry. Again, he was trusting of everyone, and whenever his friends would warn him showing off those valuables in public would be or would make him a target, he would say something like, yeah, it's all insured. There was this time where a friend said, quote, yeah, yes, it's insured, but insurance isn't going to cover your butt. They often would go to strip clubs, and Rick would pay the $600 fee for the two of them to go to the VIP champagne room with a girl of their choice. One of their favorite strip clubs was Christie's Cabaret on 32nd Street. Apparently, Rick preferred Asian girls, and Christie's was where Rick met Brandy. Brandy was from South Korea, and in the year 1977 was adopted by an American family. She was only a few weeks old when she was adopted. So she grew up in a typical Midwest setting in Michigan. She had 8 brothers and sisters. And in the year 1995, she moved to Tempe, Arizona, with the intentions of going to Arizona State University. But before she enrolled, she found this ad in the newspaper that read, "Looking for models." So she put going to college on the back burner when she realized she could make $1,200 a week as an escort. At the time, Brandy's father had developed cancer, and she would send this money for his treatment. Everything changed when he got sick. So she was doing whatever she had to do in order to help her dad. Her mood changed. She became moody and indifferent. She would work a lot of the places in the Phoenix area. But Christie's Cabaret, Rick's favorite, was more high-end strip club. And the other one, Bourbon Street, was a little darker. She also worked at Bikini Club. And apparently this was kind of a 2-story building in an industrial area near the airport with no windows. They would be checked for weapons. Then customers would choose a girl and go to a private room for 30 minutes. This company also offered an out-call service where a girl would meet a client in a hotel room of their choosing. They would take a bodyguard who would wait for them outside. Rob Lemke was a tall, high school dropout from Spanaway, Washington, which is south of Tacoma. He had a bad temper, he loved guns, and Asian girls. He had a criminal record, felony assault, illegal weapons, possession, parole violations. And he moved to Arizona in 1999 with his girlfriend to avoid some sentencings he had for weapons. Several. His girlfriend helped him buy an assault rifle because he couldn't buy one legally. And once he established in Arizona, he became a male stripper and escort. He was described as 220 pounds of muscle and became quite popular at male strip clubs like the Hideaway. He was known to cross the line legally. He wanted to be rich fast. He didn't care if it was legal or not. Eventually, he started his own escort agency. And that's how he relates to Brandy, the girl that's been escorting to help her dad with his cancer treatment. When he met Brandy, he started dating her too. Now, again, our friend stripper Rob is dating our female stripper, and Brandy. I have to remember her name for some reason. It always slips my mind. Now, Brandy was the girl that Rick Chance liked the most. He was very open with her about how wealthy he was. He would even show her the briefcase of jewelry. And when Brandy mentioned this to Rob, he was instantly interested. So he put together a plan for Brandy to steal Rick's briefcase full of jewelry. She tried this first time, but it didn't work. Rick had met Brandy for Mexican food before they went back to his house. The idea was for Brandy to call Rob and tell him to come to his house and rob him. But Rick and Brandy had spent the evening smoking in his $3 million Paradise Valley home. And when she called Rob, she was too high and mumbled into the phone that she couldn't remember the street he lived on. Throughout the summer of the year 2002, Brandy left Rick several messages, but he wouldn't reply back. They thought that maybe he was suspicious of her. In early August 2002, Rick and Brandy went out a few more times. After dinner on the evening of August the 8th, Brandy suggested they, get a bottle of something and have some drinks at the Best Western Hotel. After checking in the front desk, Rick and Brandy went to room 317. Rick a cigar while Brandy stepped into the bathroom. He had no idea she was in the bathroom calling Rob to give him the room number. When Brandy got out of the bathroom, she told Rick she would step out into the hall to get some ice. Rob was waiting outside for her. He put on a black ski mask and gloves, took her key card, and entered the room with a gun. At 1:15 p.m. the following afternoon, it was well past checkout time when a maid ignored the do not disturb sign and entered the room. Rick was face down on the floor, lying in a pool of blood. When police arrived, they found a single shell casing, white powder, an orange peel, and a burned stick of incense. The bullet wound was in his throat. In his pocket, he has his ID, cash, condoms, credit cards, and the keys to his car. But the briefcase with over $1 million in jewelry was missing. Forensic evidence was very available, let's say it that way, because Brandy's key card was left inside the room and her fingerprints were on it. Her fingerprints were also on the hairdryer. They found surveillance video of Brandy and Rick in the parking lot at the front desk. Then in the hallway of the third floor room. Rob was in clear view of the security cameras just outside their door too. So it was a lot of evidence. Police shared the photos with the media, and they got a lot of calls. A call from Brandy's mother, who worked as an officer at the Maricopa County, Estrella jail. She had recognized her daughter on the local news. When police searched Brandy's cell phone records, it showed multiple calls to Rob. They searched the apartment and found jewelry tags that displayed Rick's brand. They soon learned that Rob was originally from Washington State and that he had a warrant for his arrest. All authorities from Arizona to Canada were on the lookout for Brandy and Rob. They assumed that they were on the run to Washington State. And they were right. They actually went to Tacoma. There he knew somebody who he thought would buy the jewelry from him. 5 days after the murder, Brandy was arrested in Tacoma. Rob was arrested 2 days later. They were found with jewelry, a fur hat filled with more than $20,000 in cash, and several guns. Brandy was charged with first-degree murder. She cooperated. She provided the murder weapon. And she said that Rob was the one who pulled the trigger. Apparently the gun was given to a friend of Rob and hidden inside a pizza box. She told police that she had no idea that Rob planned to kill Rick. She said that she, after leaving the room, stood in the hallway for less than a minute before she heard a loud pop. A witness in a room that was nearby contradicted Brandy's explanation because that witness said that she was inside the room and she was begging Rob not to do it. She'd say something like, "Don't hurt him. He's not going to say anything." A witness claimed that she then looked through the hotel door people and saw a man standing guard. Now, because Brandy cooperated, prosecutors offered a lesser charge of second-degree murder. Of course, she also had the armed robbery and conspiracy charges, and she took the offer. She was sentenced to 14 years in prison, and she served part of her term at the same prison that her mother used to work. She was later released in the year 2016. Rob fought extradition without success. When he was returned to Arizona to face charges, he eventually pleaded guilty and he was handed a life sentence. However, he will be eligible for parole in 2032. This story, it's not really a story. It's somebody else's life, and when I read about this case initially after one of you guys' suggestion, I thought to myself, this is not the kind of case I cover. Yes, it is a true crime case, but it's very open and shut. It's one of those cases that was easily solved. Tons of evidence and not much of a mystery, really, but I thought it was not only interesting to know that he was a very public figure, but also showing a little bit more of what is known about his life. I read this book. Can't remember the name of the book, but it talked about, or had a theory, I should say, how sometimes you're successful, very successful at something, but you're very unsuccessful in other things of your life. They were talking about different people, like, can't remember his name, Williams, the guy that took his life. Is it Robert Williams? No. Can't think of his name right now. My mind is... Anyways, it provided quite a few examples of very famous people, very successful in their business kind of people that somehow they managed to have a horrible time or a really hard time in other parts of their lives. And some people they were sharing were like they had really hard childhoods, or abusive parents, even sexual abuse, and a lot of things that you're like, oh my goodness, if you can come out of that and be successful, but there are more cases that I can count of people that really are very successful in business and their business endeavors, I should say, and makes lots of money. I know a few here on YouTube, yet their personal life is a true nightmare. Now, I don't mean to say that the book that I read is right. I don't personally believe that in order to be successful, you have to give something up. And, in this case, for Rick was his personal life. No, I don't think, you have to pick one or the other. But this case really left me thinking. You can be rich. You can be very, very wealthy. But you can't buy true love. You can't buy a family. You can't buy the perfect family. It's a connection, it's a relationship. And it's really lucky to find somebody who really, really loves you and sticks with you through the good and the bad, the sickness. Is it just some people that are lucky enough to find that? I really can't understand a lot of the cases I research and how people get married and then after a couple of years they decide it's not the right, that the guy does something that she doesn't like or the girl does something that he doesn't like, and they either move on or in some cases end their lives and the lives of the partners. And I'm not saying that I don't believe in divorce. Divorce is a very real thing and it's the answer for some cases, but I almost feel sorry for people that you wouldn't think or you wouldn't feel sorry for, like a very successful millionaire that can have any girl he wants, can have any car he wants, any jewelry, and if that's what he wants, I'm sure he'd be a happy person. But in this case, he kept looking for that true love, and in a good way or in a sick way, I don't know. But he always came back empty and putting his faith in his wealth, jewelry, and other things to make himself wanted, instead of really taking the time to be the guy that he was and allow people to love him for who he was and not what he had. I think in the end, this is a sad story, but not because of what happened or the way that it happened, or the actual crime itself. We've seen worse. We've heard, we read worse. But it's showing us another side. Money really can't buy you happiness. And yes, it will make your life easier, but how much easier can you make it for the rest of your life? To be able to be happy and fulfilled if you're looking for something that money can't buy. Let me know your thoughts about today's case in the comments down below. Thank you so much for coming back here today, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye, guys. Testify of how he wanted to kiss her, that he exposed himself more than once, and that he even had sex with her 10 minutes after killing his wife. So on Friday, December 21st, 2007, the jury found Stephen Grant guilty of second-degree murder, and they sentenced him to 50 years in prison. He appealed but was denied. Tara's sister was given control of not only the state, but also custody of, her sister's estate, but also was given custody of their 2 children. But their grandfather, which is Stephen's father, was denied visitation rights. He tried to fight it, but eventually he lost hope and ended his own life in June of 2008. Even today, Tara's children participate in this way to remember their mom. It's called Tara's Walk. That has raised tens of thousands of dollars to help the victims of domestic violence. Now, was a very hard case to try to compile into one video. I had to make the executive decision of not including his confession that is available online if you want to read it. There's also a lot of there's a lot as far as interviews for this guy, and so I had to kind of give you the bigger picture and not be kind of wrapped in the details that, in hindsight, I mean, looking back, they were not really going to be relevant to the story, but many of the details in this case will send you into this different rabbit holes that would lead nowhere, and sometimes kind of suggest Tara's role in what happened, which I think it's absolutely disgusting, because if you're suffering from, this kind of verbal abuse, like your wife or your husband or whoever is doing that to you, there are ways, not for everyone, but there are ways of dealing with that. And there's definitely a way of dealing that doesn't involve what this guy did with his wife. So, in this case, the violence was kind of going both ways. And at least how it's shared on the media, it's kind of giving you the perspective of Stephen and how he had to put up with her temper, her anger, and the way that she verbally abused him. And at the same time is this submissive, sweet guy that everyone believed he was. So it's, it's kind of putting a little something spice into a case that really hope. No. So, anyways, thank you so much for sticking with me throughout this video. I will only do one case today because it's already almost 2 in the afternoon. I had to cut way too many times, and still I'm gonna have to leave a lot of that stuff in. But lesson learned. Tomorrow I'll get up extra early to get this done because I have all the cases ready, just waiting for me to be recorded and shared with you. Now, what do you think about this case? Do you think that Stephen actually dragged it out for way too long? Do you think that there was something more to what we know about Tara? Maybe that she was a little bit more abusive that is shared? Let me know. Anyways, thank you so much for being here today. I made myself sleepy, so maybe I'll take a power nap and I'll get going. Or I'll resume my day. Talk to you guys next time.